Super Tux Kart is a unique game for me because I believe it was the very first open source game I ever played. I think I was just browsing the software repositories and I came across a game called Super Tux Kart. Now, it was the kart part that actually caught my eye because I, of course, thought of Super Mario Kart. Now, with a name like Super Tux Kart, it's kind of impossible not to compare it to Super Mario Kart. And, it's a fair comparison, I think. I mean, you could probably call it a Super Mario Kart clone, though it's not an exact clone because it seems to take a lot of inspiration from Diddy Kong Racing, especially in the story mode. And yes, Super Tux Kart does have a story mode. It's kind of a weird one. Basically, the GNU Buffalo, or whatever the hell he is, gets abducted by Microsoft, I'm guessing that's what this is. And it's up to you to save him by doing a bunch of races or something. I mean, honestly, the story itself is throwaway, but it's kind of interesting that there is a story at all. And story mode has this weird open world thing that you get to drive around and choose what events you go to. It's actually a really interesting idea. I have to say that I'm absolutely in love with the graphics. Especially with the latest version of Super Tux Kart, the spirit of the graphics stays pretty much the same, but they added a lot of flair, for lack of a better term. There's a lot of bloom and shading and all sorts of really cool stuff going on, but it still has that mid-2000s aesthetic that they pull off really, really well. I mean, if you go into Super Tux Kart expecting like top-notch graphics, you're going to be disappointed, but all things considered, it's actually a really good-looking game. Even the backgrounds look good. The racers themselves are pretty okay as far as graphics go. If you can't tell, the racers are all based off of popular open source projects and things. And there's even an add-on section in the game where you can download new racers and new tracks and all sorts of stuff. Each racer has its own attributes, though when I was playing I didn't really notice much of a difference between the racers. They all accelerated about the same, they all drifted about the same. And speaking of drifting, when I first played this game, I didn't even know drifting was a thing. For the footage in the video, I played probably 4 to 5 hours of the game, and there's actually a lot to the game. I didn't even unlock all of the maps and stuff, and I'll talk about the unlockables and achievements later on. But, much like Mario Kart, drifting is a very important part of the game. In fact, when you do the harder challenges and the higher difficulties, there's just no way you can even beat the computer without drifting. Now, the physics and handling characteristics of the karts, basically, when the kart is moving, the handling is very comfortable, especially when you're using a controller, which I strongly recommend. When the kart is drifting, it's really, really easy to control. But when the kart is stopped or moving slow, it's really wonky, especially when you're going backwards. It's just weird. So when you first start playing Super Tux Kart, you'll notice that a lot of tracks are actually locked. You have to play story mode to unlock them, which I think is really interesting for this kind of game. There's also a bunch of different achievements that you can get, but I have no idea what they do or where they're stored or anything. I got probably a half dozen of them while I was playing, and I don't even know how to view them. So the tracks are surprisingly varied. Like I said, I played probably 4 or 5 hours. A lot of that time was spent in story mode unlocking things. To be honest, I'm not a huge Mario Kart fan, so I can't really compare the levels or tracks or whatever to what Mario Kart has to offer, but I was pretty happy with them. Each track had its own music, and man, let me tell you all about the music. I would say that the music in this game is probably the most underrated part of it. And the music typically follows whatever the theme of the track is. Like, for example, the Scotland track has some bagpipes going. The country track sounds like a weird folk song. The UFO track sounds like a UFO, or whatever you would expect a UFO track to sound like, I guess. My point is that I think the music is really, really good for being a free and open source game. Now, what isn't good is the sound effects. The sound effects are just cheesy. When you use boost or run over like a gumball or something, it just sounds very like amateurish and just like not good. So there's a few different game modes. There's normal race, which is just normal racing with pickups that you can use against your enemies and stuff like that. There's time trial, where it's basically normal racing except for there's no power-ups or attacks or anything, it's just racing. There's a mode called Follow the Leader, which is basically a bunch of karts that has to follow a lead kart but not pass them. This mode's kind of fun because all of the karts are trying to kill each other, including the leader, but at the same time you can't pass the leader. So it's pretty challenging. It ends up being pretty darn fun. There's 3 strikes battle, which is kind of like a death match. I didn't particularly like this mode because the maps were all like too big. There was just too much going on, so it was easy to lose track of your opponents and are they above you, are they below you, are they on the other side of the map? It was just kind of a pain. Then there's soccer, which is, if you're familiar with Rocket League, it's kind of the same thing, sort of. There's a football version where you're actually running into a football or a soccer ball. But then there's also a hockey version. And the hockey puck and the football behave differently. The hockey puck like moves and, it's on ice. This game mode's actually kind of fun, but it's really not my style. Then there's another really cool mode called Easter Egg, where you basically drive around the map exploring it and looking for Easter eggs. Now my big gripe with this game mode is that even though you're supposed to like drive all around the track and explore and look for stuff, there's still a lot of area on the map that you can't go to. On certain maps, you can't even like jump off ledges to get to other parts of the map because this bird will come and take you away. Which makes sense on normal races and stuff, but if the point of this game mode is to explore maps and stuff, then it just ends up being kind of frustrating. But it's a cool game mode nonetheless. So to give my final thoughts on Super Tux Kart, I would say that it is possibly the single most underrated open source game that you can get natively on Linux. It's available in pretty much every single Linux distribution software repository. It's available as a Flatpak, it's available as a snap. You can even get it in the Google Play Store so you can play it on your damn phone. It's a really good game, and if you've never played it before, I strongly recommend downloading it and just giving it a try. If nothing else, it's a classic open source native Linux game that every Linux user should at least play once. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, be sure to leave me a comment below. I used to do game reviews long ago when I started the channel, but they weren't really very popular. So definitely let me know what you think of this video in the comments and stuff. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, you should check out Linode, which is a VPS or cloud hosting provider. They pretty much specialize in Linux and have this really awesome cloud manager which makes spinning up servers super fast and easy. You can even SSH into your server straight from the cloud manager. It's just awesome. They have a ton of different Linux images to choose from. You have Ubuntu, you have OpenSUSE, Fedora, even Arch and Gentoo is in there. And if using the web interface isn't your thing, they have a really awesome CLI tool, and they recently revamped their API, and you can even use it with Terraform. But yeah, this wraps this one up. I hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate all your support, and thanks for watching.